When it comes to the breed as a whole, I honestly think that it is a dog that anybody would absolutely enjoy having around. They can chill with the chill, they can go with the goers and do with the doers. And when it comes to a family environment, being able to mesh with everybody in the family on an individual level um, is something that I would say several breeds can do, but I wouldn't say all breeds can do. Um, he can go running with your parents or your high school track student in the mornings. He can sit and watch, you know, Gabby's dollhouse with the baby during the day, and in the evening he can sit and warm your feet next to the fire. Whatever you do, they can do it with you. If you go on a vacation, they can come with you. Now, again, a lot of that is going to have to do with the way you raise the dog and bring them up. Um, I would not say that you can just, go out and get a Tosa and expect that you're going to have the best behaved dog on the planet. Um, I think it takes work as it does with any dog and with any breed. But that in mind, what it brings to a family, I think, is a very, 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 very good candidate um, with a lot of potential to be a very well balanced and very beneficial family member. Uh, I think probably the best example of that would be they also tend to, or should I say, rather, another way to illustrate that would be they tend to adapt to whoever they're with. Um, I have dogs that I never have to tell things twice. That um, you know, uh, I've had my parents watch, and they can't get them to do anything once, but again, that had more to do with the fact that during raising them, yeah, I would play with them absolutely, but there was also a time to stop playing and start doing. Whereas with my parents, they treated them like they would any other grandchild, and then of course, dog is not going to understand that relationship as anything other than friend, and friend we don't follow. So um, that would be what I would say. I think you get out of them what you put into them, but there's a lot to get out if you put in the work and time.
And what are some of the things that you would be a red flag for you for somebody that is asking to get one of your puppies? Um, what are, who are the type of people that you would say, well, maybe this is not the right dog for you?
Hmm. I would say that I generally try to approach everybody who comes to me with an open mind. Um, Working as a dog trainer and behavior therapist, and meeting different dog trainers and behavior therapists over the past couple decades has let me know that there are a lot of opinions out there. There are a lot of ways that people go about things. So I think it's better to approach potential puppy owners, potential TOSA owners with an open mind. Um, for instance, I as long as you're feeding your dog something that's healthy, and you're putting in the time to make sure you're doing the best you can with what you've got, I'm okay with that. If you are doing the time and research to learn how to train a dog yourself, and you'd like to go at it, you have a backup plan for if you can't quite work it out, absolutely, that sounds great. um, there's some people that I know that have had TOSAs, myself included, living in an apartment. That's perfectly fine, as long as you're getting the dog out, getting the exercise that they need on a regular basis. And when I say that, I don't mean that you have to be running 3 hours a day. Just as long as you're getting those walks and doing what balances your dog's temperament and your dog's behavior, you should be okay. Um, so when I'm looking at somebody when I'm evaluating somebody who is coming to us for a dog, and not just me, but also the others here that are with me, the things that we tend to look for. Um, I want to know that this is not a breed that you heard about today and decided you want one. For heaven's sake, please no. um, I want to know that, I mean, experience is great working with dogs, different breeds. And certain parts of your experience will help with a Tosa, and certain parts of it are going to make you think that you're doing the right thing when you're not. So experience can be good or bad. But again, I think open mind, willingness to learn, and the proactive mindset of regardless as to what challenges present themselves, regardless as to um, what life circumstances may change, I am committed to this animal. And I think as a dog trainer, the same way, people will come to me with different behavior issues with their dog, and they'll ask me, how bad is it? Do you think this dog can be helped? And I can say, like, even in those situations, I've never met a dog that couldn't be helped. Um, and the greatest deciding factor, the greatest single deciding factor is whether or not the people involved are going to see it through. If they are, I've not seen a single thing that a dog can struggle with that they can't be helped with. And if they're not, then I mean simple stuff like chasing their tail, chewing on a specific piece of furniture, things that we might consider smaller things, are reasons why dogs get given up every day. They bark too much. They, so on and so forth. Things that just show less about the dog's issue and more about, I think, a lack of commitment on the person's side. Um, so yeah, all that to say, when I'm evaluating somebody, when we're looking at people, we want to see somebody who's taking the time to educate themselves, to make wise decisions. Um, Again, your living situation may not be, 30 acres out in the country or what may have you, but are you finding ways to work with that? Are you finding ways to make things work in your life? And if you are, then great. If you're somebody that's going to get out there with this breed and do great things and accomplish great things, also great. This breed needs people that are going to put them out there in a great light. Is that required? No, but it'd be nice. you know. Uh, and then as far as things that I would say would be red flags, I'd say somebody who is openly demonstrating that they are they're not willing to work to educate themselves. I'm not saying you have to know everything when you call me to talk about a TOSA, but if we talk and we find that there's some things that you don't know, how do you respond to that information? Do you say, oh, hey, I didn't know that. I need to go and look that up. And you go and look it up. Even if it's something that's like, I'm telling you it's true, and you say, I still want to look that up for myself. Okay, perfectly fine. But if I tell you something or we're talking and it comes up, there's some new information that you didn't know or whatever, and you constantly have to know everything. You constantly have to be the one that, case in point, I had a guy who called me today who was trying to, I'm going to try to be tactful when I talk about this. He was trying to, I think, I think, make himself look better by trying to demonstrate how much he knew. But the issue was the more he spoke, the more you can see that wasn't the case. Let's put it like that. And then when it came to personalities being able to mesh, um, I don't think that the personalities meshed very well between he and I. But that doesn't mean that I can't work with you. That doesn't mean that I can't hear you out. That said, as far as the conversation ended, um, I don't think that that's the kind of person. They struck me as the kind of person that was more concerned about other people's perception of them. This necessity to be the biggest, the baddest, the best, an inability to take a more, we'll say, committed to the dog approach. Um, And this was somebody that when I look at Tosas, when I look at what stands in their way between now and 10 years from now, continuing to be the great dogs they are, when I look at what the issues were in the past, the greatest single factor that honestly remains true in all of those things is the people behind them. And one of the questions I have to ask myself is, honestly, this person may think I'm the dumbest person on the planet. I don't really care. But are they good for the breed? Can they help the dogs? Are they going to put the dogs forward? Are they going to put the dogs first? And if the answer to that is yes, then everything else aside, let's figure out how we can work with this person. And if the answer to that is no, if I feel like you're saying things that make me really, really believe that you're more likely than not to fight this dog or something like that, um, then I'm not going to allow our kennel to take part in that sort of play, if you will. Now, there are other breeders out there. There are other kennels out there that I'm sure would take on somebody like that, and that's perfectly fine. But as far as what we have a part in and what we have a part in bringing into the breed, um, that's what I want to watch, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. Um, can you talk about their trainability and what are some of the things that you would suggest um, an owner new to a big dog, and especially a big dog that has some natural guarding and aggression, aggression? How do they hone that in so they don't become an issue? And what are some of the things that you tell them as far as training is concerned?
Um, I would say that when it comes to trainability, the Tosa is going to be a dog that just flat out astonishes people. It is it is extremely intelligent. Um, Again, a lot of people might hear me say that the dogs are smart dogs or intelligent dogs, and I think that for 9 out of 10 people, the idea that you have in your head when you hear me say they're intelligent is an idea that's already underestimating these dogs. When you look at the traditional description of a Tosa, according to the Japanese dogmen, there are a few things that they say about the dog: a big head, good structure in joints, um, a big mouth, and a few other things. But the first thing that is always included in every single description is they wanted an intelligent fighter. And I cannot stress that enough. This is an extremely, extremely intelligent dog. And when it comes to how you might work with one, um, if you can understand that a Tosa they can be playful, they can be reserved, they can be so many other things. You can find so many different personalities within the breed. But the Tosa always interacts with the world through its mind first. It is intellectual, it is reasoning, it is observant. Um, if you can think of another breed to compare that to, um, consider a very quiet, observant German Shepherd. Consider a very quiet, observant dog that almost gives you the feel of something primal, like a wolf. Um, that quiet, observant nature. Um, and in that regard, they're more like an Akita than they are a typical Mastiff. Um, so when it comes to trainability, I'd say anything that can be done with a dog as far as potential, absolutely. And I'll qualify that by saying I'm not saying that a Tosa is going to be an earth dog and is going to outdo a wiener dog going into a foxhole. He's not going to fit. There's some things that they physically cannot do. But when it comes to, again, the potential in their training, there is no limit. Now, what methods I found are most successful? Um, I think if you can work with a Tosa in such a way that you are constantly working towards needing less, then you will find that you have a very, very, very smart dog. However, if you work in ways that constantly lead to you needing more, you will feel like you have the most selectively intelligent animal on the planet. They are dumb when they want to be, kind of thing. And what I'll say is, what I mean by that is, rather, for instance, when I'm teaching a dog to walk on a leash, if I have a dog pulling on the leash, or if you have a dog pulling on the leash, the first thing most people think of is they want to brace, they want to grab the leash with both hands. If that's not working, then they get a different kind of collar. They get one that does more, maybe a prong collar, and this is nothing against prong collars, but just as an illustration, maybe a prong collar, maybe an e collar, maybe a chain, maybe they just step it up and step it up and step it up. Fancy halty head collars, fancy harnesses, all these different things. If you're going down that route, then this is going to be the least fruitful and most frustrating experience you've ever had. Now, on the other hand, if you can find a way to communicate with that dog, get into their head and help them to understand the pulling is the thing you have a problem with, you will find that I don't care what you're walking down the street and see. I don't care if it's a squirrel, a coyote, a cat, it doesn't matter. You will find that it doesn't take more to control your Tosa than it takes from me talking to you right now. In fact, I've had several instances where Tosas have gotten into it, either with other Tosas or with other dogs. And one of the big hallmarks for me of whether or not I'm dealing with a Tosa is the fact that I can tell them to stop. And I mean, there's so many other dogs that I've worked with, so many other breeds that I've worked with. There are sometimes individuals that are like that, but when you're working with a dog that, like some of these dogs, when they got into these instances, it was another dog at fault that picked a fight with something that bit off too much more than it can chew. Some of these instances were with dogs that I had only had around me for maybe a month or two. So there's no real explanation for ulterior explanation, rather, for why it should have worked. But when you establish the right kind of relationship, I can say a name, I can say stop, and that's it. Um, Now, would I say, rely on that? No, not too heavily. But again, just talking to the relationship that you can expect to have with your dog, the level of trust that you can expect to have with your dog. Where, I mean, I could tell you stories. I know of a instance where I was working with a dog that I had worked with um, for years up to that point, since it was a puppy. And I was training it one day. We were practicing, and then we did really good on the given thing. This is not a Tosa, and I remember I took her to this playground play set. We were playing on it. While we were playing, she actually caught one toe in it. And this is a dog that everybody adored. Everybody that knew her loved. Everybody said she was the greatest dog on the planet. Um, and yet and still, with that toe caught in that play set, I knew that she is starting to get into a state of, um, we'll say, a state of shock almost, and I'm going to get bit. So in my mind, I set myself up. You're going to get bit. but you got to help this dog. So I went over there and freed this dog. The only time she ever bit a human in her life was right then, and perfectly understood, perfectly expected. Um, on the other hand, working with Tosa, who had a very similar situation, I was working with, we were doing fence jumps, and this was, um, you have to forgive me, this was early 2000s. We didn't have as much information out there. Um, and I was doing fence jumps on a chain link fence. And very similarly, the vast majority of the dog made it over the fence. A toe got caught in one of the bits of the chain link fence up top. And in my head, it was like, if the other dog bit me, this dog is going to tear me up, but I'm not going to leave him like this. And I went over, and from the moment I touched him, he relaxed. And in my head, I'd already said to myself, he's going to struggle too much and lose that toe, and he's going to tear me up. But I'm not going to let this just happen. And the moment I touched him, he completely stopped struggling. And I was actually taken aback by it. I shouldn't have been, but I was. And being able to pick up this 140-pound dog at the time, pick him up in the air to the level of a 4-foot fence and free his leg from that fence, um, without the slightest jerk, no struggle, no nothing at all. Um, and being able to place him down, um, it was an education. And I will say that, along that line, um, what good I have accomplished as a dog trainer and behavior therapist, I have much to credit this breed for, because of how much each individual has taught me. So when it comes to what I expect from a dog eye protection train, I expect a lot different, for instance, than what you see in a lot of these, we'll say, sport protection trainings. You expect to see a dog that is yelled at. And nothing against the people that do work with these dogs. I understand why they do it. I just disagree with going around that route. Um, but you'll see a dog that is yelled at. You'll see a dog that is go, go, go. You have to repeat stuff continually and continually. What I much prefer and get used to and kind of spoiled on, with a Tosa, is just a word. You say it. The dog is working with you. Half the time you don't have to say it, you think it, and then they're doing it. And they know the difference between when you just thought about it and when you mean it. And when you take that step, they're right there with you, you know? They know the difference even around the house. They know the difference between, when I'm getting up to go get a refill on my tea, or when I'm getting up to go somewhere, if I'm going off the property. Very, very intelligent, very, very observant. If you can earn their trust, you will have the smartest dog you've ever had. And I don't mean that in necessarily that they have to be smarter than every other dog you've ever owned, but they will be on par with the best you've ever seen, at least. Um, but if you try to control them, try to dominate them, try to operate in a sense that is based off of honestly what most people use when they're working with dogs training, um, you will find it is, I mean, you might as well be trying to teach a dog to meow instead of bark. You're working against nature. Just forget about it. I was going to say, um, a lot of people will ask questions as well about what tools to use. And I can say that I don't see one here with me. I am in my office, but I am still getting it organized. I moved into my office like the day we had our first interview.
Oh, okay, cool.
So there's that. But a simple slip lead is really all I've ever used. You don't need anything fancy. That said, if you haven't got that, Um, it's not about what tool you use; it's about how well you use it. And you can have, the world's most expensive dog collar and and leash, and if you're not using yourself effectively, then you're not going to have good results. And then I can go out there with I know it's around here, and I know they're around here, and I know they're going to show up as soon as this interview is over. I know they
Mhm.
are, but I can go out there with. I wish I could show you just a piece of the the string that I use. It's like a twine almost, but it's a soft fabric, almost like a nylon material. And that's all I need to control 150 pounds, 160, 170 pounds. But again, it's based off of how you use that. So don't feel like you have to go get some fancy leash or anything like that or fancy tools. Um, you don't have to have fancy treats. You can nuke a hot dog in the microwave for 60 seconds and use that. And as far as honestly, as far as toasters are concerned, I'd say probably 30% of them aren't even treat motivated anyway. But if you can let them know what a game is and how to play it, you can motivate them with a good toy as well. So it's just using what you've got well. I think you'll find there's some very, very good results you'll get.
And that probably differs quite a bit when you're dealing with like a German Shepherd or a Malinois or even like a Rottweiler, right? They have
Well, I will say,
different drives and different personalities.
I'd say that because of what I've learned with just my journey, getting to where I'm at, um, I've found that the best methods I can use with any dog work with every dog, um, in a principle standpoint. And that doesn't mean that it's applied the same with every dog. So, two dogs I like to use an example are actually not Tosas, but they're great for this. Um, when it comes to counseling people on how to raise a good dog, it's four things: exercise, discipline, affection, community. Those four things balanced, you have the best dog you ever had. If those things are out of balance, then you're not gonna have a good time. And if we get down that list to the discipline part of it, every dog needs discipline, but we need to know what it is, how to properly apply it. Discipline is corrective guidance. It's not about punishment. It's not about communicating to the dog how I feel about what you did. No, it's, hey, that thing that you're doing right there, stop that, choose something else. And the goal of it is simply stopping a bad behavior and giving the dog an opportunity to choose something different. Now, regardless as to whether I'm working with a 3 pound Chihuahua, a 200-pound Mastiff, a Pit Bull, or a Pomeranian, it doesn't matter. That principle is the same. Um, and I find that a breed, more than anything, doesn't really change that, but an individual can. And two dogs that we have on this property, one is Amina and one is Pepper. Um, I can have Pepper on the farthest side of this property where you can't even hardly see her, but I can say her name and say no, and that dog will roll over on her back. She will worm all the way across every inch of that 5 acre property to get over to you and apologize for being the worst dog on the planet. You know, whereas alternatively, Amina, you could say her name and she is a gladiator in the Coliseum. She turns back to you and says, "Are you not entertained?" Before she,
Yeah.
like, that's her thing. And again, practically speaking, the principle is the same, right? I need to break the train of thought, give them a chance to do something different. But what that means for Pepper is say her name and she's stopped. She's done. That's it. You know, with Amina, on the other hand, sometimes you have to get in front of her, or sometimes you have to use certain techniques to get her attention and break her out of it. And when it comes to it, if I were to use what works on Amina on Pepper, it would be abuse. I would have gotten her attention before I even got over to her. And by the time I get through with her, that poor dog would not have much trust left for people, you know? And if I try to use what works for Pepper on Amina, then that is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Like she's just gonna go and do whatever it is. Um, so when it comes to it, um, if I'm training a Tosa, if I'm training a German Shepherd, if I'm training a Malinois, um, I will use what I use. I try to use as little as possible, and work with the dog here first and address that. And I make them control their body as opposed to me trying to do it. And that in mind, I can understand and respect how that might sound crazy. It seems like every breed has their thing that they can do, and then every breed has their thing that they can't do, right? That everybody believes they can't do. They believe mastiffs can't do obedience. They believe greyhounds can't sit. They believe spitz types dogs can't do off leash. Everybody has their limit for each breed. But what I find is that as a trainer, those are my favorite people to work with because they give great tips. when, uh, when they say, I bet you can't, and I say, okay, well, what are you going to do when I do? I got some really good tips like that. So when it comes to it, I let the dog show me what they are and aren't capable of. And in that regard, I've had, um, I'd say, one of a kind experience in being pleasantly surprised at every turn when I think this is the limit of what a dog can do, and boom, they're way up here. Um, so that in mind, for those who might be concerned, me saying that you can control a Mali bullet with just a single piece of string, I get it, but um, it's something that we do. We just do, and it works. You know, so that would be what I'd say about that.
Yeah, we know that, like, structure wise and size, and certain dogs are built to do certain things. And what are some things that a Tosa do you think could do realistically if given the opportunity, and if somebody had the time and patience to, say, teach tracking or nose work or whatever? Do you think a Tosa could do that, or do you think it needs to be something else to harness their uh, their certain drives?
I would say that a toaster could generally do whatever you apply them towards. Um, I would need to qualify that by saying, again, that's going to take a certain type of trainer. There are some things that go along with, for instance, tracking. You have a dog on either a loose lead, or in some very rare instances, I've seen people with working scent dogs without the lead. You have to have that's got to be built on a very solid working relationship with that dog. Um, I would say when it comes to really any work you do, you have to take in mind the breed that you're working with. Um, and if you can do that and work with that, then there's a lot you can accomplish. As far as the TOSA is concerned, um, I have conversations with people, what seems like daily now, on the idea of whether or not TOSAs should exist even outside of a fighting ring in Japan. And I think that that's a question that is best left to the person that you're asking. I'll answer it for myself and for everybody here. Absolutely. Yes, they should. And that in mind, I think that the things that lent them to their expertise and quality in the ring are the things that make them good at many other things. I've had Tosas that taught themselves tracking. I've had Tosas that were naturally assertive. And again, a lot of people will have an issue with the idea of a Tosa being used for protection work. Um, I don't. That's based on my understanding as a trainer, how to work with a dog. Um, but I can understand how somebody who doesn't have that same conviction, for instance, um, might see a problem with that. You know, if you believe that um, a Tosa, for instance, being taught to do anything other than fight in the ring is a sin against the breed, then of course you'd have a problem with them doing anything else. If you believe that a dog can be, for instance, bred to be more aggressive with people, um, then I would see how you could have a problem with Tosas being used for protection work. You know, again, if you feel like that's something that can be passed on genetically, and I understand that that's a standpoint that many people might not have. I would say, in my experience, um, I don't believe it is a thing that can be passed on genetically. I do think that, however, you can pass on things through nature or excuse me, through nurture. Um, there's a lot that a puppy sees and observes and learns from its parents that we don't give credit for. Um, so that in mind, when it comes to things like protection work, I have absolutely no problem with putting a Tosa towards that. I don't think that it makes them any less stable working with people than it would any other protection dog with a good trainer. Um, as far as other things that I think that they're good for, I think that they are naturally very good as therapy dogs. Again, something that several people that I know that work with the breed don't want to hear any more than Tupac wanted the world to know that he wrote a kind letter to Madonna, right? He's got an image to keep up, and I get that, but the thing to me is what's at stake. If the only thing is at stake is bragging rights or who's got what, then that's one thing. But when you have the existence of an entire breed on the line, I think it's time to get serious and get honest and start talking. Um, Especially if it's a breed you say you care about. And when it comes to um, when it comes to other things that I think this breed is good at, dock diving, I think is something they could do. I think canicross is a sport where your dog essentially pulls you while you run. I don't think it's an actual marathon. I don't think, but I know it's longer than a mile, so I'm out. But yeah, that's a sport that they could definitely do. I think that I've seen several people do mountain biking with their dogs. I think the Tosa would be an excellent candidate for that. Hiking, I think that they could do agility. I think that they would shock a lot of people in agility, especially for their size and how well they move. I think that they could do pretty much any working sport that you put them towards within reason. I don't. I mean, I think that if you really wanted to, you could train a Tosa to do herding, for instance. But realistically, the only reason I would do that is if herding is how I make my living and Tosas are just what I got, you know. But I feel like there's an easier path there with certain other breeds that are better suited for that. That said, could a Tosa do work? Absolutely. There's nothing that they are not structurally fit for. Um, I've seen videos where certain breeds will jump up an 11-foot wall. I don't know that a Tosa is necessarily going to get all the way to 11, but the average fence is only 6 foot, and I know several Tosas that can jump it without touching it. So when it comes to it, again, just the practical sense of what they could do, um, I tend to kind of hover around protection work, police work, things like that. But that's because I think that it is, at least as far as I can see, um, it is the closest we can get to what they were originally bred for, and there are ways we can do it according to the rules that originally guided them and created the breed in the first place. So yeah. That said, again, there are limitless applications. They make great therapy dogs. They make great um, assistant dogs. I've seen one or two that work as PTSD dogs, or as assistants to people who are physically impaired. Um, Again, it's just a matter of the application. But with those instances, I will say that those are people that knew what they were looking for. They did their research, they got a Tosa, and they trained it for that, or they had it trained for that with somebody who is qualified to do that. Um, it wasn't just somebody who got a dog and then, got one of those online ESA certificates, which, God bless them. People have their reasons, I'm sure, but um, things that lead to a good situation down the road for a dog like a Tosa, that would not be one of them. But I've definitely seen them work great as therapy animals, as support animals, not support animals, but service animals. That's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, I think they can do quite a bit. Like I said, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that the things that you get out of working with your dog, um, they don't just help your dog. They also, like, I've never had a time where I accomplished something with my dog that didn't also make me a better person. I don't have any great accomplishment that I've ever reached with a dog that didn't also further develop me into the person that I am today. Um, the dogs benefit from it greatly. Their quality of life goes up, their health goes up, their cost comes down. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Um, and then the other thing is, you know, I think when we are open to that, um, we find there's a certain sort of sweet simplicity in being able to just look at the dog that's in front of you, and instead of saying what they can't do, this breed is limited by this, that, or the other thing, let them set that limit of what they can and can't do. I've never not been surprised. And, again, I remember seeing a lady who worked with greyhounds, and people say you can't do off leash, they can't sit. And I knew a lady who um, would travel around with six or seven of them, and she would open up her van door, and these dogs, I kid you not, would come out and strike poses like a circus act. They would one would be up on just its front legs with its rear in the air. The other one would be like the same sort of position but with its rear down and its hands in the air, its paws in the air, all these different things, and they'd strike a pose right there. And she'd give them a command, and then they all go and take a seat, and wait for their next thing. And it was just one of those things where if she said strictly the only things that these dogs can do because they're greyhounds are what greyhounds do, or should I say have done, then I think that there would have been a limit there. And I also think that the work that she did has led to helping not only dogs in that area, but greyhounds statewide in our state because it sparked people's imaginations. And that can't be quantified, that can't be measured. I can't say how many greyhounds went on to find homes and accomplish great things in those homes because of what ripple effects happened because of that lady, you know. Um, and in the same way, when it comes to um, working with any dog, I set myself up based off of this is what I've seen a dog accomplish in the past. I have no reason to believe that this dog cannot accomplish that. And further, I have every reason to believe that this dog is going to show me something I haven't seen before. And I've yet to be in that regard. It's every day is an education in that regard.
what are some things that you think could help this breed? And as far as like their genetic pool, even like
Mhm,
there's probably not a lot of specimens and not a lot of diversity.
mhm.
Is that a problem, or is and you talked about like that in with the Japanese Kennel Club, it's okay to outcross every so often, and then 4 generations later, or something on those lines, that they're considered a Tosa again. Is there an active um, program out there that is trying to preserve this breed, since they do have low numbers and all that sort of thing, as far as creating a proper outcross program, or am I just off base?
So I will say, just a fact check on me if I said that. I'm sorry. So the Japanese Kennel Club does not have that carve out for outcrossing the breed. It's the Japanese dogmen themselves. So those are two separate groups of people. Never the twain shall meet, as far as my experience up to this point. Um, but again, if you're talking about people that work with the breed and know the breed, um, that's the Japanese dogmen, hands down. The Japanese Kennel Club are people who you could say come along after the fact. Um, so there's that. As far as programs that are working on breed preservation, I would say, unfortunately, no. Um, there are several reasons for this, but I would say there are two major groups of people who could and don't. Um, Group one of people who could are the people who believe that the only place the Tosa can exist is in the ring. And they believe that any work that is done to work with this dog or create this dog or uh, push this dog along any other line is a sin against what was originally created. So their reasons for not being more, we'll say, involved with this breed um, in the open are uh, easy to see. I wouldn't say agree with or understand, but see. Yes. Um, and then the second group is, I would say, the Japan itself. Um, but it's not just Japan, it's also outside of Japan. If you look up Japanese dog breeds, there are 6 breeds that are recognized, if I recall correctly. Um, the Shiba being an example, the Kai, Shiba Inu, Kai Ken, the Akita, I believe the Hokkaido is another, the Shikoku is another. And these are breeds that Japan has recognized as national treasures. They have organized organizations and committees that are actively working to procure and curate individuals of note and make sure that the breed is actively managed into the future. The Tosa does not enjoy that sort of privilege. I have absolutely no idea why, but I can tell you some of the stuff that I've heard, and I can tell you why that stuff doesn't make any sense. Um, so I think one of the biggest things, as an example of that, would be the idea that the Tosa has too much influence of Western breeds. And if you're comparing them to the Shikoku or the Shiba, then absolutely that's a concession we can make. However, the top of that list is the Akita Inu, which is a dog that, in its present form, is not the original Akita. If you go back far enough, you will find that the Akita very much had as much as, at least, if not more, influence of Western breeds than the Tosa, which only, as far as we can prove to date, has had three other breeds added to the original Shikoku to make the Tosa that we see today. Not so with the Akita. There was a time where you can fact check me on this. I'd have to look up the word for it, but there was specifically a Japanese word to describe the two regional variants of Akita, one of the two, and this word was not, the northern type or the southern type or the Hokkaido type or the Odate type or anything like that. It was specifically the German Shepherd type because of the heavy influence of the German Shepherd on the outward appearance of that dog, at least as far as I can tell so far. So when it came to it, again, the idea that the Akita was without Western influence is utterly false nonsense. And then further, if we say that the Akita, if we tried to make the argument that the Akita had less breeds, Western breeds influencing it than the Tosa, unfortunately, the Tosa was literally used to help restore the modern Akita after the World Wars, from what I understand, or around that time. So, if you're going to disclude the Tosa because of Western breed influence, but it's still good enough to restore national treasures, then somebody's not being honest, or that's not the actual reason. Um, and we can say several other things. We could say it's because of the dog fighting. Well, Akitas and Shikoku, and also, if I recall correctly, the Hokkaido Ken, several of these breeds have actually been used for dog fighting to various levels of success and at different points and regions, even up to the that fated fight between the Akita and the Tosa Amagiyama. So again, it's not their use, at least as far as I can tell. And I have seen images of a very well known and well recognized Tosa Inu family. That should I say rather Tosa Inu people who breed and work with Tosa Inu for fighting. Um, Over there, you can find that there are certain, we'll say, underworld groups that are more linked to certain gang activity. But even then, it is a family thing. Um, and the same is true when it comes to people that operate more above board. You'll find that there are family things that go with these dogs. It's not just a random dog man somewhere. It is a family that raises these dogs and established a name for their lines. Um, so when it comes to it, getting back to it, there was a very, very well known family, Tosa Inu family, presenting a gift of, I believe, two Tosas to the emperor of Japan, the leader of Japan, in what is very easily to see a some sort of national event, some sort of open public thing. This wasn't underhanded. This wasn't behind the scenes or anything. So um, the question as to why this breed is not um, recognized the same as so many others, to me, again, I don't know. But that they are not, yeah. And some of the reasons that I've heard don't add up. So when it comes to the idea of whether or not this breed has people that are actively working to preserve it, um, I don't see that. I see people that are working with the breed. Absolutely. There are people that are showing. I've seen people that have their dogs protection trained. I've seen people that there's a lady that I'm friends with that she does weight pulling. She has done several different things with her Tosa, including she works with her Tosa to do hydrotherapy. So the dog sees a lot of water, you know. So people are working with these dogs, but as far as a organized effort to preserve the breed, especially as compared to what you find with some of the other Nihon Ken, the Japanese dog breeds. Um, you don't see that for the Tosa, save for what we're actively trying to put together here. And it's not to say that there aren't other people who have tried it in the past. There are. There are other people that have tried it separately that we've been able to kind of wrangle in and pull together. So we're trying to put together people for that end, and I think that we will see that into the future. But aside from us, I don't know of. I mean, I even know of a lady that's operating a rescue out of Korea um, for this breed. But as far as a preservation effort, again, I don't see any of that. I think I think people. I think people. I think people. 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 I will say that talking with someone from Korea. And I won't get into too much of what our discussions got into, and it's because I can't, out of respect for this person asking me not to. But one thing that I will say, talking with this person and trying to get to what makes a Tosa a Tosa, one thing that this person said was that the rules make the dogs. Um, and it was something that kind of blew my mind at the moment because it wasn't, hey, they have to be this color, stand this height, have this many wrinkles, so on and so forth, a scissors bite, whatever it is that, the standard is calling for in a given country these days. Um, it was that the rules make the dogs. And the idea was essentially, even among Tosas that fight in different leagues and according to different standards are not going to be the same. And talking to this person, um, it educated me so much about how the rules affect the dogs. If you look at even among fighting dogs, again, they're not all the same. They do not have the same intended design, operational methods, or status. Um, but of course, as this relationship kind of took a turn for what I'll say is confusing, it occurred to me a very old principle that I once would say all the time and had since forgotten. And that I believe is that people make dogs. And I cannot say that enough uh, to my core. I think that right now, um, even with this person in particular, they are working with Tosas in their traditional use, absolutely. But this person is so afraid of their own shadow that they can't develop relationships with people outside of a very small ring. This person is well past what we would consider retirement age, and many of their associates are. So when I look at that and consider, okay, the next 5 or 10 years, where are you going to be? And who have you set up to where you can pass this on? The knowledge, the skill, the passion for the breed, where is that? Um, when I think about that, um, I think that the Tosa is in just as precarious a position in Japan, in Korea, in Vietnam as they are elsewhere in the world. And until there are enough people that, again, another conversation I had today where somebody was trying to help me to understand, I believe, that the best way to protect the Tosa is to shroud them in secrecy, to make sure nobody can ever get one. Most people never see them, hope people forget they exist. And I was talking to this person, and it's like, if that would have worked, how do I know about them? You yourself said you have five, or you've had five. I know I've had at least twice that, more if you consider how many I bred. I shouldn't be able to say I know about these dogs. If that method was going to work, nobody would know about the Tosa except for the people that are in small districts in Japan, maybe the occasional person that walked past the yard and looked over a fence. If secrecy and quiet and all that was going to work for the dog, it would have, and it hasn't. And right now, the breed is at a point where all it takes is one person to mess up with one dog, and boom. I've done research on breed specific legislation, why Tosas are banned in certain countries. They're banned in so many countries. Come to find out, the Tosa has never done anything in Europe. They've never done anything in the UK, but they were banned before anything ever happened because they're a fighting breed. The Tosa has never done anything in Australia, but they were banned before anything ever happened because they're a fighting breed. You can go through so many different things, and the world is moving on. We're not in a day and age where information has to travel by boat or telegraph or letter. And I don't mean email. Pony Express. The world is getting so connected. Something happens in China, and people here in the U.S. know about it live. There's people that are here right now that are watching us talk about this, and this is, you go back 10, 20 years ago, and it wasn't a such thing as YouTube. This would be something that was put on a VHS tape and then sold at Blockbuster. People talk Tosas. That would be it. So when it comes to it, the dog is out. You can't just hide them like under a bushel. You can't turn a blind eye. You can't pretend like you don't see them or act like you don't know. There are people that are mixing these dogs with other breeds, but they aren't taking it seriously. They aren't finding out and doing research on these breeds that they're mixing these dogs with. They aren't finding homes for these puppies and having plans for how they're going to take this new breed they created to the next level. It's not about that. It's about a fad, And what happens when one of these dogs actually does do something? Well, every breed specific legislator out there says, boom, I knew it. Every person that has been waiting to prove how bad these dogs can be gets everything that they were looking for, everything that they wanted. But if, on the other hand, enough people, enough of the right people, and the people with the right kind of character can stand up for this dog, get behind this breed, and work with this breed, absolutely. I think that these dogs will be there 100 years from now. They've been around as a concept since 1100 AD. They've been around as a concept through I don't know how many wars as an actual established breed for the last over 100 years. There is no reason to think that this breed has to die out. But if the people behind the breed can only talk about courage but can't find the courage to step out into the light, can only talk about character but can't find the character to fight the right fight, not just fighting every keyboard warrior that comes up and talks about how we should go back to the old. No, I mean fight the right fight. If you can't find the courage to be what this dog needs in this moment, then how can you claim to create what this dog has been? I don't go to somebody who is, like, as a dog trainer, I don't go to somebody who is struggling with anxiety and expect them to create a calm dog. No, I expect them to create one of two types of dogs, either a dog that's extremely anxious or a dog that's extremely aggressive and overcompensating for the instability in their owner. And the same way, how can we create the ultimate fighter if we won't ultimately fight? How can we create an athlete if we won't get active, if we won't get involved? So to me, what is the biggest thing this dog needs? It needs people. And what I would do to get that, I'll set aside whatever. We could get along, we could be best friends. I try hard to get along with as many people as I can. We can get along, we can be best friends, or we cannot. You don't have to see me ever again. But if you have the passion to work for this breed, I'm for you. You know, if you have the passion to do what it takes to make this breed succeed, I will find ways to support you without you ever even having to see my face. Maybe I might not have a dog today, and somebody's looking for one, and it's somebody that I think is a great candidate. Hey, look, I don't talk to these people very much, but I have evaluated their program. I do think that they have a genuine passion for the breed. They take different directions and different standpoints that I take. But if you're looking for a good Tosa, go talk to them. We don't have one today. I don't think you should have to wait. Go talk to them. You know, um, and again, just being willing to do that. Um, if I could talk about another breed for a second, um, the American Bully. A lot of people rag on those dogs. And I get what they're saying, but on the other hand, a dog is a dog, and what somebody appreciates about their dog, I don't think it's my place really to step in and say what could and could not be lovable about a dog or about a breed. I can say they're not for me, but I can't say that they're not for anybody, in that regard. And when it comes to American bullies, as much as people are, one way or the other about them, one thing I have seen and observed about these dogs from the start is the people behind them. The people behind them. They are, in theory anyway, they are authentic, they're genuine, and it's kind of like when you buy a motorcycle and you join a motorcycle club. You can be riding down the road, not know anybody. You could be straight laced in a suit with a motorcycle helmet on and see the most bad A dude riding down on the choppiest chopper. You would never go and talk to this guy, but I bet money if you take, your two fingers and put them down, put that peace sign down as you're passing by, you'll get it right back. If you have a problem on the side of the road, that same dude is going to turn around and check and see what's up and make sure you're okay and that you get home to your family. I don't know how many times I've been riding down the road and I had somebody cut me off, and I'm over it. You're gonna do whatever you're gonna do. I'm not gonna fight with that. I'm on a motorcycle. You're in a minivan with a baby on board, sticker behind. You know the type. Yeah, I'm not gonna fight it. But before I make the decision to move out of the way, somebody else comes up and is like, flipping them off and like, how dare you? This guy's on a motorcycle fighting that fight for me. And if I go out and buy a Toyota Corolla, I'm not going to find that, not to call out Corolla owners, but just to say, when you buy that motorcycle, you join a tribe with a Jeep owner, I got a 94 Ford F-150, a OBS Ford owner. I've never had a time where I stopped and had an issue beside the road and didn't have at least two or three people pull over, want to know what's going on, help, give advice. Man, I had one of these back when I was in college. Man, my dad had one of these. That's the 3.6. That's a 6-on-6. That's his Ford straight 6-cylinder and the C6 transmission. That thing is bomb proof. All you need is this, that. You join a tribe. And when it comes to the bully, I don't know of many breeds, if any breeds, that have it like they got it. I mean, my goodness, they got it. They don't care. They'll show up tattered and raggedy. They'll show up with a beat up collar, a beat up chain, a beat up leash. They will show up with fancy $1 million diamond studded collar and harness with Fifi on it. It doesn't matter. You will get all kinds of people, but they'll show up. They will show up. They will show out. They will get together. They'll get behind each other and they collaborate. And I think that breed is going to be around for as long as those people are around, which I don't see them going anywhere. So people can hate on that breed. They can hate on those dogs as much as they want, but they got people, you know? And when I look at the Tosa, if there was one thing I could steal from another breed, it'd be bully people. I'd steal them over to the Tosa. I want that culture. And yeah, I know that comes with certain risks. You're gonna have people that are just breeding for whatever and all that other kind of stuff. But quite frankly, you're going to have that either way. You're going to have people that are sitting there talking about how the best way to protect the breed is to keep them quiet, as if that's going to stop somebody from saying, okay, well then if I get one, I'm the only one with them, and I have a rare and exotic breed. It's not going to stop them. People that want to do stuff on a low level are going to do stuff on a low level. People that want to do bad stuff with a dog are going to do bad stuff with a dog. And if you're not there to stand up and be in that gap, I think in a certain extent you can be complicit, especially if you know better. But if you can get the right kind of people around and raise the standard of what constitutes a Tosa, if you can get the right kind of people around that are going to speak up for that dog and develop the breed further instead of getting stuck in the idea that the only thing they could possibly ever be used for is something that the world has moved past. You know, um, if you can get those kind of people involved with the breed, um, the Tosa will be around for forever, as long as the golden doodle, as long as the bully, as long as the Frenchie, as long as all these other breeds that people talk bad about. But the reason why you see them on your TV screen is because there's enough people behind them. You know, the reason why you see them showing up places is because there's enough people behind them. And if you have a problem with that breed, you can try to educate those people, you can try to change the direction of that breed, whatever, but you can't take that fire out of those people, and you shouldn't be trying to fight it. You can direct it, but don't fight it. You know, and when it comes to where we're at with the Tosa, where we are with the Tosa, um, I've seen that there's a lot of people that are, I would say, brokenhearted based off of their experience with Tosa people in the past, unfortunately. Um, but I've also seen that there's a certain strength inside those people that will overcome and move forward and do what's best for the breed. And time again, I've seen these people overcome. I've seen them do it in the face of adversity. I got people in California that are dealing with um, hurricanes that aren't even supposed to be a thing over there. I got people in Canada that are dealing with um, wildfires. One of them was telling me that her friend a few miles away had to make the decision. One of her cows wouldn't get in the trailer to go. So um, she had to make the decision to leave the cow behind, and that cow's her pet. So she's staying behind. And therefore, this person that's part of our Tosa group is going to, I think, try to stay and support that friend. And even in spite of that, they still will make their time to talk about Tosas. They still will make their time to chime in. Hey, I got an idea. This is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? And the ones that can will. They will respond. They will get involved. There's one who is dealing with family in the hospital, and while she's doing that, um, is building the website for the breed club. And I mean, just the amount of work it's taking to do that from scratch is phenomenal. And she's out there doing it, working her butt off. I got so much respect for this person. And when it comes to it, um, I think that I see that there are still people like that out there. I see that there are still people that believe in this breed out there. And for the breed's sake and for these people's sake, I will go hashtag over 9,000. I will go um, whatever mode it takes to see this thing through. And I think with people like that in the Tosa's corner, um, the next 5 years are going to be a lot of work, but they will make it through it. They will make it through it. It may not be in a way that's predictable. It may not be in a way that's even readily seen today, but that avenue might open tomorrow or next week or next year. But I think they will make it. I think they will make it. Um, and I think that the dogs that we have 5 or 10 years from now are going to be closer on average to, I think, the original intent of the breed, um, from a character standpoint, not necessarily applied work standpoint, but from a character standpoint, than what we see as an average to this day. And I think that the people behind it are going to have a large part to do with that.